Welcome back. A lot of people watching the sparring between President Donald Trump and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Vice President JD Vance addressed the ongoing negotiations between the United States and Russia to end the war in Ukraine earlier today. He had this to say during the annual Conservative Political Action Conference. Take a listen.
What makes him such an effective negotiator, I've seen this in private, is that he doesn't take anything off the table. When he walks into negotiation, he says everything is on the table. And of course, that makes the heads explode in the American media because they say, why are you talking to Russia? Well, how are you going to end the war unless you're talking to Russia? You've got to talk to everybody involved in the fighting if you actually want to bring the conflict to a close. And I know the president does. But I'll tell you the goals that animate President Trump's policy. It's really simple. He wants the killing to stop. He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe. He doesn't just want to stop it now and have the war restart a month from now. He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe because the president believes this, and he's absolutely right. Peace is in the interest of Russia. It's in the interest of Ukraine. It's in the interest of Europe. But most importantly, peace is in the interest of the American people, and he's going to fight for it for the remainder of his administration. Wherever war breaks out, he's going to be the president of peace.
And on that note, CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now from inside that conference. Aaron, thanks for joining us again. What were your takeaways so far from the vice president's comments?
Mugo, good to be with you. Yeah, I thought it was really notable what he said and maybe didn't say when it came to Ukraine. You saw in print interviews yesterday that Vice President Vance criticized Zelensky, saying that he would regret, quote, bad-mouthing President Trump as the two were kind of going at it a little bit. This time, a little bit more of a peaceful tone, saying that he believes President Trump is the only one that could, get an actual ceasefire done.
And we also understand Elon Musk will speak later today. He received high praise from JD Vance. So what are we watching for there?
Yeah, throughout the speakers I've been listening to today, a lot of them talked about wanting a Doge in California, wanting a Doge in the United Kingdom, as former Prime Minister Liz Truss said. So there's a lot of love for Elon Musk here and his effort with the Department of Government Efficiency. One thing I will be watching out for, and this is maybe more of a palace intrigue thing, is that Elon Musk will be speaking shortly before Steve Bannon, close advisor throughout the years to President Trump, who has been highly critical of Elon Musk in recent weeks. Surely a dynamic there to watch, but Elon Musk addressing Doge, addressing what he wants to do in space are some of the topics I'm going to be watching out for when he speaks later this afternoon around 4 p.m.
Okay, Aaron, we know you'll keep a close eye on all of that for us. Thank you so much again for joining us. So now let's bring in Iulia-Sabina Joja for more on the war in Ukraine. She is a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. Iulia, thank you so much for joining us. The highly anticipated press conference between Trump's Ukraine envoy, Keith Kellogg, and President Zelensky was canceled at the request of the United States. The two leaders still met just moments ago. Does this signal progress in these negotiations?
Thanks for having me, Mugo. First of all, it is a bit unclear whether this signals progress because the rhetoric on both sides, particularly on our side, the American side, has been very inflammatory. And from the negotiations we have seen bilaterally with the United States and Russia in Riyadh a few days ago, and the format of these negotiations without Ukraine, without the Europeans, it has not been clear to either the Europeans or even here in Washington, what is it that we are pursuing? Are we pursuing European security and peace? What are we actually offering on the table? And what are our objectives beyond saving future lives? It's also unclear what we are demanding from the Ukrainians and whether that is to any extent a fair deal. So with all these unknowns and with the war waging on in Europe and Europeans feeling like they're being thrown under the bus, let alone the Ukrainians themselves that are bearing the big burden of all of this, it's very unclear at the moment to what extent we're actually making progress.
And Iulia, we have been watching the White House press conference, which is happening right now as we speak. The administration is updating us on their latest talks on the Russia-Ukraine war. And we know Zelensky, he has promised to not accept the results of negotiations between the United States and Russia if they, Ukraine, are not involved. So what kind of strategy does Ukraine have here if the U.S. decides we're just going to pull our support?
Well, indeed, Ukraine has a few less options than they had on the table, say, a few weeks ago, due to the new Trump administration coming to power. But what President Zelensky has been alluding to, sometimes in explicit terms, is that if we are looking at a United States withdrawal, not just from supporting Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty in this conflict against Russian aggression, then he has turned to the Europeans, asking the Europeans to pitch in more. And that's something that we've been talking about on both sides of the Atlantic for a long time. But what we need to know here, particularly here in Washington in this context, is that the Europeans have been pitching in the absolute majority, more than 50% on military aid, overwhelmingly more than 50% on humanitarian and financial aid. So they do have the means to take on more responsibility for European security. But the question on everybody's minds at the moment is the United States still in? Are we still supporting our allies and partners on the other side of the Atlantic, or are we actually turning 180 degrees and representing or pursuing rather the interests of Russia, with a lot of rumors right now going around that the United States is even considering the withdrawal of part of or the entirety of troops that we have in Europe, so a lack of support in the future. So tensions are running really, really high, but Zelensky, in the absence of U.S. support, at least what it seems to be, the absence of U.S. support is turning to the Europeans.
And we'll see what happens as these conversations continue. Iulia-Sabina Joja, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mugo, for having me.